What is up, all you gamers? Hope you're all doing well. Welcome back to the weekly Esports Rewind podcast, where we talk about all of the topics at length, and it's my favorite thing to do. Hello, Hunter.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine. How are you doing?
Pretty well, thank you.
Do you have a comment to read for
I've
the people?
got a few.
I have one as well. First, we read comments to start the episodes. Thanks to all of you guys who actually leave comments. Trill AG Gaming. I love these rewinds. Even though I'm already caught up everything, I enjoy listening to you both talk esports news, and I can listen to it every day. And I read all of that like a freaking run-on sentence.
I have to say, I feel like when we ask for comments, we get less. So don't you guys comment, you little rascals. Don't you leave a comment. So mine is going to be Cal and Allie because I see them comment a lot. And it just said, missed you, Hunter. I missed being here last week, too.
You would freaking choose that one. I didn't miss you, but I'm glad you're back. We hope you guys all enjoy. Let's break it down. This first topic is going to be a lengthy one, so I hope you guys sit back with your popcorn, some coffee, some water. Yes, we got to talk about it. The biggest news this past week, and we both covered our own separate videos on this one, dude.
Big views for both of us.
Yeah, that being some platform moves. The wars, well, they're back. They're now being restruck in the contracts and platform wars between Twitch and YouTube. We saw DrLupo become the first this past week to leave Twitch for YouTube gaming. The first, after a 2-year cycle, I should say, of when the last contracts are up. And shortly thereafter, probably the bigger part of this news, TimTheTatman now also leaving Twitch for YouTube gaming, not only reuniting him with Doc and all of them with DrDisrespect, but now we could very well see the movement of what Fwiz from YouTube says is only just getting started.
Lupo, Timmy!
Doc!
Let's fucking
Man,
go!
it feels so good to hear your voice at me in my headset right now, rather than just on my television or something like that.
Oh, baby. It feels good, man.
Doc,
Congratulations, you guys.
Hey, thanks, brother. I appreciate that.
And I'll say the common thread in both, especially Lupo and Tim's case here, is, hey, I want to have more time with my family. They both said that, hey, this is the future where I'm coming from of a ton of streaming hours. I can't really do that anymore. And so in the future, I want more pre-recorded videos and I want less time streaming, which I find kind of interesting.
Yeah, and I think they both, and I'm going to probably butcher this line, they also, besides just family, they made note. And I remember watching back either their announcement videos or their streams and their intros, they both said the same line, which had to have been Fwizz's pitch, or at least part of it, because Tim goes on a stream and Lupo said the same of they used to be large fish in an ocean, and now they are small or medium-sized fish in a vast, vast sea.
It's like, it's a lake, right? And you're like a pretty big fish in a lake. And then you take that pretty big fish and you go slap that fish. Well, you slap it first, but you go slap that fish into the ocean. And that bitch is tiny. There's a lot of room to grow. And that's, I think, crazy important for people to remember, too, is that this is like look at Ray. Dude, Ray's career popped off. Thousands and thousands and thousands of viewers. Doing all sorts of crazy stuff. She was in music videos, dude.
With that being compared to Twitch, where especially someone like Tim, you're probably a top 5, if not a top 10 streamer, not just viewership-wise, but subscription-wise. And now you're jumping onto a YouTube platform, and the broadened amount of eyes on YouTube is obviously far, far above Twitch when it comes time for individual streaming. If you only take the streaming of both platforms, they're much closer, but certainly that line makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and I think the value that they both now bring to YouTube is insane at this point, because we've talked about it before, but Lupo maybe doesn't draw the biggest viewership anymore, especially on his switch over to YouTube. Didn't get massive numbers, but what he represents for investors and the general public, mainstream media, is huge because he does so much for, charities and donations every year. I think he does that massive stream. And so that means a lot. And then obviously Tim was a massive player on Twitch who carried over, ridiculous numbers over to YouTube on his very first stream.
Yeah, it was ridiculous to see. We saw him break 100,000 viewers very early on. Within the first hour, 10,000 members. That's a kind of loyalty. We've only seen those kind of crossover numbers to YouTube one time before, I believe. We've seen him for big events, don't get me wrong, but for a platform switchover, it was Doc when he was still permanently banned, as he still is, from Twitch, and he made those eerie returns to YouTube. Those were just outrageous numbers, right? So we don't have much to compare to, but compared to Lupo, you just see the loyalty and how big TimTheTatman is and how big of a move he is for that. He can play any game. He can pull giant numbers, and as you were saying as well, when it comes to Lupo, he was the most charitable man on Twitch. He is known for far beyond that, but if you can't really name a much better public face for this, if all of a sudden, you have a guy who's raised, according to Devin Nash, $10+ million for charity. He's now also made the switch, which leads us into the next thing. You have Lupo, you have Tim, they're reuniting with Doc, you got Courage, you got Ray, you got a bunch of other YouTubers, especially from the former Fortnite space, for all your big events. Now we have Nick Merckx also on the line. He has said he is, at the point of us recording, nothing has been announced yet, so keep that in mind, that he signed the biggest deal of his life. So I want to ask you, what do you think Nicky Merckx is going to do?
I have no idea. I think Nick Merckx is just going to get a bag no matter what. I think he's going to get paid more than anyone else at this point, which is crazy to say because people like Lupo and Tim are getting signed, right? And so whether he switches over to YouTube, because we saw in that stream, he's alluding to, the biggest contract he's ever signed. And that no matter what happens, he's doing it for his family, which is a weird thing to say because on one hand, you're like, okay, that almost confirms he's going to YouTube because no matter what, it doesn't matter no matter what platform we're on. But then at the same time, you start to think, or does that mean he's going to stay on Twitch because no matter what his friends are doing, he's going to stay there? It's so confusing.
And of course, then you try and think about, okay, what could Twitch offer? If YouTube can offer the cash up front and the better membership split, and of course, maybe more eyeballs in the future, or if you want to be a bit more lackadaisical with your streaming schedule, but then you look at Twitch and could they offer a partial bag and then give you a better number on your subs? We've heard of maybe a few streamers out there getting better sub deals, so maybe they can stretch that to you get a $5 sub, you keep $4 as compared to $2.50. That can make a huge change over the next few years. But I think, yes, a lot of these guys making it for their families as well as a gigantic bag. I don't think we can deny at this point, Nick Merckx knows how to make deals. His management team does a great job, and they have landed him some of the biggest deals alone in the past year. I'll probably be saying this next week, but I don't think it gets enough credit. We talked about people like Booga and people like Ninja and other people as well getting great deals, doing very, very well for themselves after gigantic events. Booga, Fortnite World Champion, has made, I think, just about more money than anyone his age, especially in the gaming scene. The dude can really, really pull in deals. Ninja the same after his Fortnite peak. And now we have Nick Merckx. You look at the last year alone, renewing his deal with FaZe as an equity holder. You have the Barstool Sportsbook. You have Under Armour. You have Sports Illustrated with FaZe Clan, as well as now, I know I'm missing at least one, G Fuel worldwide in shopping centers. And now you have this potential Twitch and YouTube deal. I mean, the dude is supporting his family, I imagine, whether he stays or goes, very well.
Which he's saying this is bigger than all of those other things.
Which is, I can at least a few of those deals they're seven figures.
Yeah.
They're $1 million deals.
Insane. So this has to be insane money one way or the other. I know I said this before, but just to mess with people, I really hope that this has nothing to do with a streaming platform, that he's like, this is the biggest thing ever. And people are like, YouTube, Twitch, and then he owns Tesla at the end of all this. So
G Fuel can.
Yeah, who knows? Oh, massive. It could just be a huge bait. Who would know? But I think it's just crazy. He was talking about, I want to set up my family. I want to be a father. And so it looks like all these streamers, as they're getting older, are kind of going towards this route of, hey, I don't want to stream 500 hours on Twitch, and YouTube is offering me to do half of that for more money. Why would I not do that at this point? So we'll just have to see. It seems like the streaming wars are back on at this point. I don't know who's going to end up where.
Yeah, and then if Nick Merckx does make the move, I mean, it's obviously a huge statement either way, especially if he stays. But if he goes, I mean, this could spark who knows what else to happen. Is YouTube really the future? I think they have a lot to work on. Yeah. But the platform wars have certainly begun. Where do you guys think Merckx is going to go? And who do you think is going to join him or maybe continue to re-sign at Twitch? Some big old news in Asian esports, especially the Chinese scene, which could be, well, drastic. It's definitely something that's going to be undercovered because we can't cover everything on the channel, which sucks. Maybe an additional channel coming soon. China killing esports, and certainly other regions going to have a chance to catch up here in the next few years if this does continue. They've always had heavy restrictions for minors. We've talked about this across a couple of videos when it comes time for weekly restrictions on time you can spend on your mobile games at the very least, and now it takes a step further as apparently China is restricting kids under the age of 18 to 3 hours a week of gaming. No gaming during the weekdays. You get an hour slot between 8 and 9 p.m. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, which just at a face value, I wish we talked about these things more, because can you imagine any other country like America trying to get this to work. I literally cannot picture this.
Well, obviously America would not work because we are the most spoiled, rotten kids of the world. I don't even know. But I do wonder, and hopefully I'm not throwing you a curveball here. Do you happen to know what this was reduced from? Like how much time they were allowed before in any
I
capacity?
do not know, and sadly I did even cover it. I know it was already heavily restricted, and I think they were already putting in place even things like I believe Tencent was trying to push, we talked about this as well, trying to record minors who had maybe accessed accounts that were not theirs or who had surpassed their playtime. So I know it was heavily restricted before. I probably look into that more as well. But despite that, I mean, whatever it was before, it was probably a bit more than 3 hours a week.
Right. And I obviously have so many questions with this because you have to think, okay, how do they enforce this? Is it locked to their account? What if they're just, like you used to, in bed under your covers playing a game or something, playing your Game Boy Advance? Who knows what they're doing? I mean, how do they track all this stuff? Are parents responsible? Just a lot of questions for me. But you do have to wonder, in the end, how is this going to affect, like you said, esports or streaming in the long run? Because if kids can't be playing when they're younger, and as we know, kids get filthy at stuff when they're growing up. Like, they are just so good at video games these days.
Well, that's when you get good at anything you do.
And so who knows, like, if you can't play as much until you're 18, how's that going to affect things?
I mean, yeah, you can imagine. I mean, typically, I would say when it comes to esports and gaming, if you're not reaching close to your peak by 18, you go to college and you're pretty much done being a pro. We don't see many people come out of college. It does happen, and people try and be pro as they do college on the side, but not many pros actually go to college, graduate college, and then come back into the space by the time they're 21, 22. So yeah, it certainly could affect a lot of careers. We've already seen in the LDL as well, I believe a feeder league to the LPL, where it's a lot of teams have their academies or their younger rosters already let go handfuls of players. So this is not something that is this is something that is greatly impacting the youth over in China, which we should get more details of. Unfortunately, a lot of the teams we have contacts with are not in the Chinese space. I would love to talk to an owner over there or a CEO of some sort to say, how is this impacting not only who you're looking at, your recruitment process, your current lineups? What are you doing? Can you talk to anyone in the government? Because you got to imagine there might be some leeway for some, I mean, you hear about Faker in the military service if they can have some sort of exemption if they reach some sort of success level, but not every 18 or younger year old kid is going to be popular enough to maybe have an exemption from this as well. It's just shocking to me this is even a thing we're talking about.
We might not even see, this is what I'm thinking, the effects of this for a while, because it's probably going to be, 10, 20 years until these kids that are going to be mostly affected of it are going to be grown. And then we'll see more effects, in League of Legends, in the bigger scenes, not the feeder leagues necessarily, and see how it affects just the global esports scene in general, I think.
What if all your current LPL guys are like, yes, dude. Like, no one younger can come up now and they have to start when they're 18 or older?
Imagine in Call of Duty or something, like you've got Scump or Formal or whoever who is like hadn't retired yet, and now 18, anyone under 18 can't play, and they're just like, who's the old football players like Tom Brady, like they're the old dudes now who are just gonna play until they're 45 or something like that. I imagine maybe that'll happen in the Chinese scene. You never know.
Yeah, I mean, you could have players that are like, okay, we're not going to be pushed out by these youngsters now. We can stay till we're 35, 40 years old. But yes, we'll get more details on you guys for this. I mean, of course, the big headline being the restrictions in general placed on Chinese kids, gamers under the age of 18, 3 hours per week. I spent more than that just yesterday alone. So that'd be my weekly quota. What do you guys think about it? China and esports continues to be a crazy story. A pretty disgusting story out there that we did not cover on the main channel. Just not a very comfortable topic, so a bit of a forewarning for all of you listeners out there. But it comes from the Rocket League space, and an esports organization, team known as N7, had to let go of a creator and a streamer over this past week after this creator was exposed for faking having cancer whilst inside the organization. She was actually exposed by several figures out there with lots of twitlongers and lots of extended threads of how she had gone on stream to fake this disease. It was then called out not only by her own family member, I believe it was her sister, but also members in the community, as to which she then later apologizes for faking it in the first place.
I just wanted to address my sister's stream today. Her having cancer, I don't think she hasn't said anything to any of us. The only surgery that we know of is her foot. It hurts me that she has said this because as of 3 days ago, it was 5 years ago that my gran passed away from small cell lung cancer. So the fact that she is lying about having cancer hurts me.
You just never really know the kind of stories you're gonna fall upon when it comes time for gaming.
I have a few random thoughts on this. My first one being a question. Again, sorry to keep throwing these at you, but was there a reason for her doing this? Was it to garner donations or support, or for that to be like her thing?
You have to, and we've unfortunately seen this in the RuneScape space way back in the day. I don't want to name names all the time, but I remember the story itself. You'd have to imagine that the motive would probably be attention or maybe some sort of sympathy. I know there's been complaints about you should refund all of your donations, because of course people are going to sympathize with you and donate to you. So that was certainly a huge issue.
And so for me, the first reaction I have to this is obviously anger about it, because then that affects people. Like the first example I think of is Sweet Anita. For someone who actually has something like, what is it? She has her tics. I forget what it's called.
Yeah.
But people come out of the woodworks every time when someone actually has some sort of thing that they live with, and they say, "Oh, that's fake. You're definitely faking this. You're so wrong for that." And a lot of them aren't. But then you have stories like this that make people question the people who actually have problems. It's so frustrating.
I mean, there are people to this day that somehow question Sweet Anita, which is just really shocking. From, I guess, maybe an adult perspective, it's just shocking. But yeah, these kind of things certainly take away from those scenarios. And this is just, this is all the more extreme, right?
Yeah.
It just, you got to wonder what's going on to come out publicly and say that you have a disease that impacts likely everyone watching this, has touched someone's life in some way, whether it's from a loved one or a friend of a friend. It's a disease that's touched a lot of people out there. So to make light of that and pretend you have it, I think in her apology, she does mention that she has no excuse. So there's no reason that could make up for it, which is not surprising because I don't think there is a single excuse that can make up for faking having this. N7, I think they responded very well on this. They did not elaborate too much. They left it for the community and those that exposed it. They just had a pretty brief statement of, we've been made aware of some things involving this said member. They're not going to go into details because of, this is obviously someone who needs help as well. And hopefully that help is being sought after, which she does say is being so. So definitely the right call being made, and a lesson learned, a pretty obvious lesson learned for anyone out there as well, as a Rocket League creator was removed from her organization this past week for faking having a very serious disease. Apex Legends making some big old changes this past week, some changes that a lot of people had some mixed responses on, which we always love, some good old dramatic changes, which we've seen across several games, and this one being good old Strafe tapping.
Tap strafing. Close enough, though. You're almost there. We can tell that Jake doesn't play a lot of Apex specifically. But so if you missed it somehow, a lot of people were upset. A lot of streamers, a lot of pros were so upset because this came out of left field for everyone. We had Respawn address the situation and just post on Twitter saying, "Hey, we're going to be removing tap strafing because we feel..."
Strafe taping.
I'm
so sorry.
Are you good? Okay. So they remove it because they said this is not fair in the scene. They said other people can't do it. It's only available on mouse and keyboard on PC. And so controller players cannot compete, despite mouse and keyboard players saying, well, you have aim assist, so we should keep this. If you're unfamiliar, tap strafing is when you're moving and they're able to bind it to their mouse wheel to move forward. And so whenever they jump, they can keep their movement, their momentum on their movement. So imagine you're playing a super fast character, Octane, in the game, and you're running and you jump, then you can change your direction midair and keep that same kind of movement. So you do a lot of like quick moves, quick turnarounds. You can snap on people, this, that, and the other. Then they remove it.
And this kind of, again, it's kind of in a similar light. We've seen the mouse and keyboard versus controller debate across
every single time, every single game.
Every single crossplay title. Yeah. Fortnite was a gigantic debate. Call of Duty is also partially one as well, because how do you compare the advantages of mouse and keyboard to the aim assist that controller players usually get? I don't even know the words I said at the beginning of this. Did I say?
Yeah, you were fine.
Strap tafing.
Yeah, tap strafing. It is so confusing.
But to give it a comparison as well, it kind of reminds me of bunny hopping for CS. I know we've seen a few comments on that. So what if you were to remove that skill gap in CS where people take the time to learn bunny hopping? All of a sudden, Valve's like, you know what? Let's just all hop around the same speed and the same way. And it's obviously a huge movement skill gap of avoiding shots, because if you're a rookie player or a bad CS player like me, and all of a sudden I'm just like, what the frick?
Right.
But this, you said, is actually a bit easier probably than a bunny hopping skill gap.
Right. And so that was a lot of people's argument was, well, it's so easy to do because you're just binding a certain movement to your mouse wheel. And so it was something that PC players could do relatively easily that other players could not possibly do, or they could, but it was a lot more difficult. And so some people came out and said, well, maybe you should just change, like maybe it just can't be bound to that, make it more difficult to do, so the skill gap doesn't get lowered, but maybe even higher, because the more skilled players could still do it. But like you said, it's still that big argument of, okay, who are you catering to? Your pro players or the casual players?
Yeah, and even more so if you're a developer. I mean, Respawn's pretty active, so I'm curious how they're going to respond to this. Maybe make some kind of middle move here to appeal a bit more to both sides. But I mean, you got to imagine you're trying to appeal not only to pros or your high-end players or your casuals, but sometimes you're trying to appeal to both sides of your PC/console or your mouse and keys versus controller. I got to imagine as a developer, you're like, how the frick do we balance our game? And not only is it a BR, but on top of that, we have everyone who can possibly play it on different platforms as well as on whatever they want to with their hands. I can't imagine having to balance it. So I imagine a time like this is really tough. How do we expect them to maybe respond given some backlash?
I would hope, and it seems like people are encouraging them to say, just meet in the middle. Like you said, maybe they do bind it to a different button so it's harder to do, or they change it for like tournament rules and stuff like that so that skill gap doesn't necessarily go down. But like you said, it's just so hard when crossplay is so important to casual players. I mean, like, I love being able to play with PC guys or console guys when I play games.
Oh, you don't play with girls?
Nah, not so much.
Wow,
but I would. I wouldn't. My wife, just so you know. And so it seems like overall,
Hope someone gets that.
overall, it seems like maybe they will, or maybe they're just going to leave it out because they already got the backlash. It's already going to be removed. And so they might just move forward.
Apex Legends back in the news with tap tafing and crap cafing. Frick me, this story's been tough. What do y'all think about it? A real quick topic out there that we will keep brief because I think we're running a bit long is actually Scump and not retiring from Call of Duty, taking his stream this past week to reconfirm that he will not be retiring, has at least one more year in competitive Call of Duty.
I've already said I'm not retiring, bro. I'm going for at least one more year. That's all that you're getting out of me at the moment. I'm going for at least one more. All right, people, at least. After that, who knows what's going to happen? Life is a crazy game that we all play. Who knows what could happen after that, you know? You never know. At least 5 more years? What do I look like, man? Like I said, I'm not the Terminator from a different dimension, you know? I was just saying, though, like, it really is crazy, man. Like, you don't realize how stressful the year is until you're done with the year. And then you're like, oh my God, like, I have full freedom. I can wake up when I want. I can stream and play what I want. I can literally take any day off of the week that I want. Like, you just can't do that during the season. Like, you can't. It's like, it's actually crazy, you know, like how the mind works after the season's over. Because when you're in it, and you don't realize it. It's just grind, practice, you know, match. But then after the season's over and like everything slows down a little bit, it's kind of crazy.
If I were a betting man who had money, I would bet that he would retire after this year. But I, A, am not a betting man, and B, do not have money. So I will not be doing that. But it just seems like the time of, obviously, Formal has just retired. The time of old OpTic is slowly going away, which is kind of sad, right? To see Formal go away and Scump maybe alluding to retiring next year. But that also brings up, hey, maybe we'll have a new OpTic soon.
Yeah, I mean, we are going to have to see other faces out there take the reins for Call of Duty League, I'm sure, in the next 3-4 years, you look towards your older guys, not only of the OpTic dynasty, but you lose Karma, and now a ways back, you lose Formal. Maybe Scump is next up next year or 2 years from now. I give him 2 years, but again, it's probably going to depend also on what the next Call of Duty looks like. He seems like a guy who, if the next Call of Duty is not it, he's gonna be like, okay, I'm good. Like, it was not my fault. It was Call of Duty's fault. But you really need to start seeing, like, are there going to be future faces and popular personalities to pick up the pieces that these guys are just leaving behind?
I wonder, do you think, so if he wins, say he wins champs next year,
Out.
You think he's out immediately?
100%.
Okay, and so if he loses again, you think he's still going to be hungry maybe for one more year?
I mean, this is us as just regulars who literally have never competed a day in our life besides middle school track or whatever it was. So I just would have to imagine, if you want the perfect way out, it would be taking a champ's ring, especially for someone like Scump. But that's just me. That could also, again, we're not at that level where it's like, if you win one, you're like, frick, I don't want to be done with this. Like, this is awesome. I want to be a Brady. I want to go back and yet again try and prove people wrong. So often we see that happen where you end your career in kind of a tail off. So I think for me personally, not having any experience, I would love to go out with a win. And a bang. But also, I don't know. It's tough because you would think for most players, you'd be then turning down a lot of money to return, but Scump's going to make more money leaving anyway. So I think he would. I don't know. It's a great question for him.
I think it'll also depend on how well this next year goes for Formal streaming. Because say his streams start popping off, maybe he competes in whatever the new Call of Duty's Warzone looks like and starts competing in a more casual sense and does really well for himself. I bet next year, if it's rough, if Scump is getting the same harassment kind of that he was online again, Scump's gonna be looking like, that looks pretty good. That could be nice for me.
That's a really good point, because I think when Scump, I mean, typically off season, you see all the support. The Call of Duty community on Twitch is the most supported subscriber base on Twitch I have ever seen. You will see COD streamers with 500 to 2K concurrent viewers with multiple times that in sub count. The COD community loves to hand out and support their streamers, whether or not they pull gigantic concurrent viewership. So when Scump and all the boys go and actually compete and can't stream, Formal is going to suck all that up. And you're going to see Formal, I believe, I would assume, breaking 20K subs on Twitch because he's done it a couple times in his past. And so is Scump. But I imagine that when all those guys who are streaming now got to go back to the league, Formal, as a comedian as he is, he's going to really absorb all that and probably do very well. And meanwhile, to your point, I think Scump's going to see that and go, dang, I bet he's really, really happy doing that too. So we'll see if he can actually get a ring again. We'll see if he does come back after this next year. What do you guys think about Scump in the future of his career? Very lastly, for all of you guys, we love talking about NFTs. Have you guys heard about CryptoPunks? Some of those sell for millions of dollars. Some guy out there wanted to do that, but not with CryptoPunks. He wanted to do it with other people's Twitch clips, which at face value, you think that's pretty smart until you realize the guy who did it wasn't asking the Twitch streamers for any sort of permission.
People are selling your clips as NFTs, by the way, Miz. Who? Stop. What? Where? You're being fucking serious? My clips, my money. Me? That's my money I could be making. MyClips.tv. Oh, you son of a bitch. Oh, you son of a bitch. Oh, you son of a bitch. Bro. Someone made $700 for this? They're fucking selling Reckful clips. That hasn't any sold?
Yo, can you piss? I got to pause.
Bro, Reckful would be so mad if he didn't make money from this. He'd be so pissed. That's not nice. What do you expect?
This will probably be a shorter one too, I imagine, because almost it's just so ridiculous that there's not really a whole lot more to say other than this was a guy who supposedly actually worked for Twitch before, which is kind of mind-blowing.
He claims he still does work for Twitch.
Yeah, it's just like he's in a different job or something.
We can't confirm that, but that's what he claims.
Yeah, and so someone that's at Twitch said that, I was just interested in NFTs and Twitch clips and how that could work. And so I made this website that listed all of these streamers' clips for people to buy for Ethereum. Crazy.
Yeah, and also it was quickly called out by Miskiff, who got him on the line, and this went downhill real fast for the guy who seemed who seemed pretty nice and seemed a bit remorseful of like, oh man, I didn't do any of this right, huh? Trying to bypass all the legalities of it.
So I have a someone that is upset that would like to talk. He's here. Hello.
Sure, let's talk.
Hey, so I'm an attorney for Miz and others, but I was also Byron's. I have a very deep understanding of the NFT space. I have a very deep understanding of copyright law. Everything you're saying is not accurate. There's years and hundreds of years of basic copyright law here. NFTs have changed a lot of ways technology works, a lot of way you can track these things. Doesn't change basic copyright law. What you're doing here is so not okay.
And what was later seemed to be shot down on the fact that he really didn't reach out to anyone whatsoever. He was just posting a ton of clips, even sometimes buying clips from himself to try and gain traction, which he claims were paid out. Didn't really get too many details on that. But shortly after this call with Miskiff, and I believe that was his attorney or lawyer on the line as well, the whole website has now been shut down. Not before at the end of the call, he was like, if you guys want to work with me at all in the future, just let me know.
It seems like a good idea, honestly.
It's a great
that
idea.
A lot of people were talking about months back when NFTs were first coming out, of like, oh, maybe we'll see, Tim's Fall Guys clip end up being an NFT and people can buy it. But it's just, I mean, he didn't go about it the right way, obviously. He had the idea. He was like, oh, I'm going to make the website. I'm going to set it all up on everything. And then he was like, oh, wait, I need to ask the streamers if they'll work with me. And he says in the call to Miskiff, he's like, but it's actually kind of hard to reach out to streamers and to ask them, which I thought was funny because it was like, yeah, that's true. That I'm not surprised by that at all. And then supposedly, the part that blew my mind was that he was buying his own just as a test or something like that. And Miskiff says, so why did you buy a Ludwig clip for $3,000 then? Where the whole thing just gets sketchy and weird to me. And so I'm sad for the guy, kind of, but also, man, this was kind of a dumb mistake.
I think it's going to be a great idea, but then it falls into who actually has the rights to the clips, whether it be the streamers or Twitch, and who you have to go through to get that kind of permission. And then, of course, the cuts, and does it go 70% to the streamer, 30% to Twitch? I would love to be behind that idea. Sounds so great. If you're a streamer, it's great for streamers if you can actually go through all the proper loops to get this all done correctly. What do y'all think about it, though? Some guy tried to sell Twitch clips that did not belong to him as NFTs, and it's now been shut down. As per usual, hope you guys all enjoy the Esports Rewind podcast, same time, same day, every single week. Love talking about topics with all you, and if you want to leave a comment, that would be awesome.
No. Remember, guys, don't you leave comments.
My bad.
I'm watching you.
Go tap Strafe. Go strafe the taps. Don't you dare leave a comment.
Do it.
Don't do